Welcome to another episode of the Meal Prep Monday podcast. I'm your host and founder of Prep Dish, Allison Schaaf. Today, we're talking about lab work. I think this episode is sort of like a PSA to make sure that everyone is, you're putting yourself and your health first. Here at Prep Dish, we provide healthy recipes and meal plans to make sure that you are becoming, the healthiest version of you. And, you have the practical tools to have this healthy lifestyle. And I know we get a lot of questions about nutrition and health. And, my background is as a registered dietitian. I, worked as a quote unquote dietitian for years, but I am still, I keep that up to date with my accreditations and everything. And one thing that I do find it's really important to do is to make sure that you're doing lab work. So this episode is not going to be giving you specific nutrition and health advice, but this is giving you the reason why, right? Like one of the reasons why I don't give a lot of specific health and nutrition advice is because so much of that is individual. And one of the best ways to determine where you might have some deficiencies or some areas you need to focus in on is to do lab work. And this is not a one and done thing. Lab work is something that you should be doing on a regular basis. And if you're going to the doctor fairly regularly, there is some lab work that's happening there. But oftentimes there is kind of a deeper level of lab work that could be being done. One thing I am going to suggest is looking for someone that specifically practices in functional medicine. I find they often will dig a little deeper in terms of the lab work. They will also be a little more specific on the numbers and not just, there's different ranges you can look at, and they might tighten up those ranges. And, if you're on the border, kind of let you know that you're on the border of something versus just saying, oh, you're still like within this wide, broad category of, within normal limits. And within functional medicine, so for example, where I had my lab work done and, who I'm working with, it's a nurse practitioner. You can find dietitians that specialize in functional medicine. And if you have specific concerns, maybe there's already a specific practitioner, anyone that you like really feel comfortable with too, like, if you already have someone, that's great. But I will put a link for finding someone with functional medicine. Although I do find one of the best ways to find a good practitioner is through, word of mouth, asking, you probably know, quote unquote, that friend that you want to ask that would, has the best information for finding something like, hey, who should I work with to do some lab work to make sure, that all of my baselines are good here. And again, I'm not going to provide like, hey, here's the 7 things I think they should be checking, because again, like, ideally, you can find someone that works with you that really listens to your history, where you're at now, if you have any concerns. So what you may be tested for might be quite different from what I was, the different tests that I had. I mean, there are some really basic things. Like an example I wanted to provide was, when was the last time you had your vitamin D levels tested? Because I know that's often one that people can be, they might have low vitamin D levels. But if you are supplementing with vitamin D, you need to make sure that you are testing to see, one, if that's what it's doing and what your levels are at, because you want to be able to adjust your supplementation based on what your lab work is saying. And things like testing, lipid panel, testing thyroid, hormones, especially for all of my ladies out there that are anywhere similar in the age range that I am. I think hormonal testing is really important, especially if you notice anything, fluctuating in terms of sleep or mood or anything like that. That's something that it's important to keep tabs on what's going on there. It can make such a big difference. I've seen definitely with different friends and stuff too, like how much of a difference that can make. So that is this is going to be my episode of some advice that's really more find someone else to give you advice. And hopefully it's not frustrating, but it's more of an encouragement of like, oh, I really should make that a priority. Basically my goal with this episode is I would love for some of you to be like, oh, I've been wanting to go and, get my lab work done, and I've been putting it off. And so this is my gentle reminder to make sure to put yourself first. It can make such a difference. If maybe you're not feeling as energetic, like sometimes there are easy fixes in there, maybe not as easy fixes, but it's really good. Sooner is always better than later with something like this. So again, just an encouragement to make sure you are getting lab work done on a regular basis. And, especially if you're taking supplements, like sometimes it might actually be in the long run, you save money because some of the supplements, as you shift your supplementation around, it might be that you end up saving some on supplements based on what the lab work is showing. So again, no specific health advice here. Of course, like at Prep Dish, our goal is to provide you with these healthy, delicious recipes. But then if you want to, I do think you need to go a step further in terms of going into what specifically you need. And this is, this is how I think, this is my thoughts on how I guess I'm doing it. And I would suggest, making sure that that's something that you're looking at in your life as well. Again, I will put a link to the practitioner search, but often just like a family and friend referral is a good way to go there as well. So I hope this episode is helpful. I hope it inspires some of you to make sure that you are putting yourself first. I know all of you out there do so much for others. So I want to make sure you're doing for you as well. If you are interested in trying out the Prep Dish meal plans, you can head to prepdish.com/MPM, short for Meal Prep Monday. These are another good way to take care of yourself, your mental sanity when it comes to meals, making them simple so you're not stressed and worrying about them. So again, that's prepdish.com/MPM if you want to try out our plans. And then if you are a regular listener to this podcast and you've not left a rating and a review, I always appreciate that. Just head to, whatever podcast app you use. Those just help people to find our podcast. So I always appreciate that. And that's all I have for this week. I will be back again next Monday with another episode.